For the one PvP fan at the back of the room, introducing Push, a new PvP game mode. So, new PvP game mode for Guild Wars 2. I'm not gonna lie, I certainly didn't. I thought we'd never see the day. I thought, they tried Stronghold at one time and that was it. We're never going back. But we have a brand new PvP game mode coming up. And here's a really cool post, actually, from the developers, kind of talking about some of their objectives, like what they're going for. Because, big issue with PvP. Like, right now, PvP is struggling because there aren't enough people playing it. This means that match quality is not good. A lot of different skill levels mixing together. That leads to pretty unfun gameplay, especially from a new player perspective. And a really key issue that I think ArenaNet has correctly identified here, and kind of their goals between adding a new game mode, is because it's quite difficult to learn Guild Wars 2 PvP, because when you're a new player, you have to learn how to fight and fight other players, and you have to also learn how to rotate at the same time. You have to learn Conquest. And those two things at the same time are very difficult to do, especially when you're really thrown in the deep end and you're playing against potentially very good players. I tell this story, and honestly, this is a fun story to tell, actually, but I had a guy who was getting into PvP, and his first ever game of ranked, seriously, guys, first ever game of ranked on the NA server was against, I think it was Naru and Grimjack were in the game, or some other kind of duo queue of very top-level players. It might have been Naru and CJ or something like that. I can't remember exactly who it was, but it was two top players, and obviously it wasn't the best experience, and this is the key thing. And this is why I do actually kind of like the idea of adding a new game mode, because they need to get more people playing PvP, and I'm not sure if Conquest, in its current state, it's kind of death spiraling, to be honest, in ranked. That is not the way. I really like the idea of adding a new game mode, and it is going to be a lot more combat focus, and they kind of say as much here. This is what it looks like. We have the beautiful gray boxes here, and the key mechanic is actually this push and pull. So it's kind of similar to like the payload game modes in some arena shooter style games. I think, and I was kind of expecting something like this. I was expecting like King of the Hill or something like this, right? And the objective is as follows. You basically have to push this, I guess like a bomb or something, to the enemy's base. So you've got to push it to the enemy's base and not let them push it to your base. I think what's interesting here is that they actually do have kind of like 3 lanes here. So it's entirely possible there might be some other little objectives going off to the sides that you might want to have to kind of contest, or maybe that's kind of promoting some more like roaming style builds rather than just like all out team fights here in the middle of the arena. It's a small map too, and this is the really key thing here. It's a small map, there's one objective, and it's 5v5. So, what does this do? This essentially means that it's all about fighting. Fighting. And, you know, in my interview that me and Sneb did with Brian Yarrow, he talked a little bit about how they really want to create a game mode that will kind of be the stepping stone, right? Like, you start out here, you learn how the combat system works, and then Conquest is still going to be the main competitive mode. They just want to make it easier to learn how to play Conquest, so that players can kind of get a bit of a handle on the combat system in this game mode, and then move on to Conquest later on. Now, of course, bear in mind that, you know, they might change their mind on that, right? Like, if this is really popular, it works really well, then at the end of the day, Conquest could take a back seat, which I'd be a little bit sad about. I'm kind of a Conquest fan, to be honest, but at the end of the day, it's you know, PvP is struggling right now. Like, change is probably what it needs right now, and I wouldn't be opposed to changing it, even in a pretty drastic way to make it more alive. It's probably better to have a game mode that is less interesting from a skill perspective and more alive, right? And therefore more competitive, rather than a game mode that's really well designed, which, look, I'm a Conquest defender, guys. I really like Conquest. I think that watching high level and participating in high level Conquest is some of the most fun in Guild Wars 2. That's why I run all my PvP tournaments and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, Conquest is a game mode that does not work very well unless you have balanced matches, right, in terms of experience level. Conquest falls apart very, very badly if you have kind of this mismatch in experience levels from players. So it makes a lot of sense. I really approve of this approach. I do, you know, and I love the fact that they are going to be going for this beta perspective here as well. Like we have, we can see these actual, you know, the Super Adventure Box cloud, like is the payload basically that you can control and push it back and forwards, right? All that kind of stuff. And you know, they have these gray boxes. This is kind of like the kiting or the terrain they've got here in addition to like the basic kind of terrain and map layout they've got there. It's going to be really cool. It's going to be really cool. And let's actually just go ahead and actually dive into the details because it's actually happening very, very soon, guys. September 10th, we're actually going into this beta. The push game mode was designed to create a more accessible and enjoyable PvP experience without sacrificing competition. We noticed that players who are new to PvP found Conquest mode overwhelming, with its multiple objectives and need for precise map awareness. Yeah, this is a very accurate diagnosis with the issues with PvP, in my opinion. This is a good start. To address this, we're developing Push as a fun, casual alternative that simplifies gameplay by focusing on action and teamwork around a single objective. Again, this is... Yes, they get it. Like, this is very important, guys. This is really important. And a good sign. If you're, you know, feeling a little bit wobbly about this, that's fair, obviously, if you're a PvP fan. But the fact that ArenaNet understand the issue here in a very solid way, to me, makes me feel very optimistic about this going rather well. Not a surprise, though, by the way. Like, everyone who knows Grouch knows that Grouch is a big PvP fan, big world versus world fan. So, not a surprise that he does want to make that experience better, especially for new players, and kind of make PvP more of a thing in the game. With fewer objectives to juggle, it's perfect for both seasoned PvP players and newcomers, offering a fast-paced, low-pressure way to enjoy competitive gameplay while gently introducing the mechanics and strategies of Conquest. Exactly, and that's kind of the goal they have here. And by the way, guys, okay, we have a live stream showing this off tomorrow. Well, I guess today at this point, right? If you're watching this on YouTube, shout out to YouTube, like and subscribe, haha. But we can actually get a little bit of a showcase tomorrow, guys, September 6th as well. And the beta is coming out next week on September 10th. So get in there and make your voice heard, because it's a full open feedback thing as well, guys. Very, very cool. Although it's still early in development, this is a game mode. This game mode is already becoming a favorite within our team, which is a good sign. For now, we'll give you a brief overview of how Push came to be, along with the different phases of development we expect this mode to go through. So we have this little graphic here, and, you know, we have the prototype, which is basically what we've got now, right? Like, we are here with the prototype. So it's the first playable version of the game mode. It works. It's probably got some bugs, right? You know, and it exists. You know, it's there. Less QA times, there's going to be bugs. Artwork is obviously temporary as well, like literal grey boxes in there. And no UI set up for it, so no UI support, so you're going to have to kind of just get in there and try and play, right? All that kind of stuff. There might be some missing information. And you can see the type of feedback that they're asking for here. It says here, does it feel like it could serve its purpose? So in other words, is this actually doing what it's supposed to? Like, they've described what they want it to do, right? The ArenaNet team have said they want this to be a good entry point to PvP, combat focused, helping people learn the basics, the entry level concepts of how PvP works, how does combat work, right? Like the roles that you might have, and you have an objective. You know, at the end of the day, Guild Wars 2 PvP is objective oriented. In Conquest, you have 3 nodes and then potential side objectives. Here, you're going to have 1 node and maybe some stuff off to the side too. We don't know just yet. Maybe that's not even fleshed out with how it's going to work. So that's the kind of feedback. And is the payload thing actually fun, right? Is the push and pull mechanic actually any good? So does that feel good to play around? So we'll have to see how that is and if there's going to be any iteration. And then, as we go through these different steps, they're going to continue to run more betas. A bit like world versus world restructuring, right? I would expect this, guys, to actually not be fully added to the game for at least a year, if I had to guess. Because this is going to be a pretty big dev investment, right? Similar to world restructuring, right? So they do not want to screw this up, right? This needs to deliver some kind of value. So they're going to take their time. They're going to iterate on it. They'll polish it, right? Like get all the UI sorted, like make the mechanic, like tweak it, make it more fun, right? And you know, fix any bugs, all that kind of stuff. And then we'll see the final version that will get shipped into the game. So this is a long-term project, guys. So if it's not good day one, we don't have to worry about it too much, because this is going to be a slow development process, yeah? Over time, this will be, you know, we'll see it pop up in betas and like off seasons, unranked and all this kind of stuff. But it is, gonna be a while before we actually see the final form. So if it's scuffed day one, it is what it is. And again, guys, because we're so early in the prototype, they've got a lot of agility here. The big problem with Stronghold, and I imagine this will probably be talked about in the article here. Do you know why Stronghold wasn't good, guys? because they basically finished it without any feedback, if we're being real here. And same with Desert Borderlands, actually, in HOT. They made Stronghold with basically no input from the community, no input from actual people who actually played the game. Same as World versus World with Desert Borderlands. They just made it, they iterated it, they polished it, and they shipped it with no interaction with the players. And that can work, by the way, if you nail it, nail it first try. But with Stronghold and Desert Borderlands, yeah, not so much in that regard. So here, they're introducing this to us at the absolute pinnacle of how agile they can be with development. They could potentially scrap this at this point. I imagine they're not super invested in, like, this has to ship, right? Because when Stronghold was done, they had to ship it. Same with Desert Borderlands. They had to ship it. There's no way they couldn't do that. But now, they could probably switch it up, change it significantly, and go a different direction if community feedback is very, very negative and people really don't like how this works. So this is a really fun thing, actually, I think. This is a really cool opportunity that we have, as players, actually have to really get a proper influence on where this is going to go for PvP. And kind of be a part of the development process. So really interesting, in my opinion. For the initial beta event, the map will be in a prototype state. There are a number of things that are unpolished or incomplete. We've essentially put together a bare minimum version of the mode with our existing art assets and tech. The version of the map for the beta is still a conquest map on the back end. Some of the map will be grey box art, literally untextured grey polygons. Let's go. And we'll have a number of reused assets from other maps like Temple of the Silent Storm and the Eternal Colosseum, and a super Adventurebox Angry Cloud for good measure. I feel like they would never do this, but I think it would be so funny if they actually left this in the game in the final version. Imagine if it was like a Super Adventure Box themed map. That would be kind of cool, actually. I don't think they'd go that way, but it would be funny if they did. We certainly think that the game mode has potential, or it wouldn't be something that made it to the beta phase, but we want to see how things go once a bunch of players get their hands on it. Some of you may remember the initial stages of the Conquest mode. We went through the bulk of development process before the first beta event, and was then iterated on through beta feedback. While Stronghold does see some play, about 10% of all unranked PvP matches so far this year have been Stronghold. Yeah, because people forget to untick it, that's why. The overall reception was never as positive as we hoped for a new game mode. Yeah, that's understatement of the century right there. Our goal for the push prototype is to get early feedback on the mechanics of the mode to see if it's something that players want before committing to the iteration and polish that will really bring it to life. Beta testing. The push beta event begins on Tuesday, September 10th at 12 p.m. Pacific. That's just, normal beta time, like we know what's going on there, and runs until Monday, September 23rd. So long beta, actually. Like, you have a good, actually, opportunity to play this. And please keep in mind that since it's the beta test, there will be placeholder UI, art, and audio. During this beta event, the push mode will replace ranked queue. Ranked queue, by the way. And we'll use the standard mini-season 2 with your rewards. Actually, wait. That's not as insane as it sounds. It's because it's the off-season. This is the off-season. They're replacing the off-season, basically, with the push mode. That's why. Because the season for Conquest ends on the 10th. So this actually makes sense. This is fine. You'll be able to access the push mode through the PvP browser and custom arena maps. We'll be gathering feedback to help gauge how the push mode fits not only our goals, but also player experience and expectation. We've created a thread in the sub-forum for feedback from this beta event. After you've had a chance to play, we'd like to hear what you think, what you enjoyed, what you think could be improved, and what you liked or disliked about the beta. For players who participate in this beta, we will also be conducting a player survey that will be sent to your email after the beta is concluded. That's kind of cool, actually. I like that. So there you have it. That's the new PvP mode, and as a little bit of icing on the cake here, Torn of Legends is back. This is very cool, actually. I'm actually a really big fan that they've brought this back, and this is very cool because now there's actually so much competitive PvP that happens in game. There aren't really enough players for it, really. Like, the competitive scene is not massive. Obviously, the current PvP scene is fairly putrid. But look, it's the thought that counts, guys, okay? Like, the architecture is actually really exciting here. Because now we're going to have weekly ATs, monthly ATs, monthly special ATs, like 2v2, 3v3, and they could add push to that very easily, by the way. And after that, we're going to have, this twice a year mega tournament of legends. It's going to be every 6 months. And that's going to be almost like a step above the monthly. It actually has worse rewards than the monthly. The gizmo is far more valuable, actually, than a legendary weapon, by far. Infinitely so, actually, I'd say. but still pretty cool. I'm sure there'll be its own special title as well that you can get for winning the Tournament of Legends. And hey, maybe eventually they'll add a gizmo to the Tournament of Legends too. We'll see in that regard. Oh man, yeah, it would be so cool if they ever added best of 3 for the finals. But yeah, I think they said they wanted to do that at some point, but it didn't end up happening, guys. Unlucky. But yeah, I do like that. That's very cool to see that. And hey, that means I can actually announce when Masters of the Arena 3 is going to be, because I needed to know when Tournament of Legends was to basically figure out when I'm going to run my own tournament. That's right, guys. On YouTube, we're announcing this. Masters of the Arena 3 is coming. Get ready. It's going to be epic. It will probably be the best produced tournament I have ever done. It's going to be good content. You should make a team. Or don't. It's up to you. But anyway, let's make a new PvP game mode together. Your feedback during the beta and initial development phase will be crucial as we refine the push mode to ensure it meets both our goals and your expectations. While it's still in its early stages, we're thrilled about its potential and can't wait to hear what you think. Yeah, I'm feeling pretty positive about this, to be honest. I like the strategy that they're going with here, because all of the problems with PvP are population-oriented. And I'm actually deadly serious there. Like, you know, Sneb got back into PvP, and, you know, Lara's playing PvP as well right now, and they both say, man, there's so much damage, there's so much CC, like, matches are one-sided sometimes, and, you know, I don't know what the hell's going on, right? These are all great points of feedback, and definitely accurate, but why is that the case? Well, it's because you're thrown into games where the skill and experience levels are so variant, right? Because the reason why people are getting one-shot is because it's basically more experienced players playing mega aggressive builds that are designed to, like, hyper carry games, and newer players and less experienced players are not able to deal with that. Like, the reason why there's so much CC is because you get pile-driven by experienced players if you're new, and you just don't know how to respond to that, right? It's kind of interesting because the amount of sustain in the meta right now is actually surprisingly high, but the problem is that you really have to know what to look out for, and there's so many builds and abilities and, like, elite specializations and weapons and all this kind of crazy stuff. That is just like you completely get thrown in the deep end, right? Like, if you're a new player, it's gonna be intense. It's gonna be a very, very intense experience. And all of this stuff, like, if matches were more skill oriented, then people wouldn't be getting 100-0 nearly as much. People wouldn't be getting stun locked nearly as much, because players who are capable of delivering those stun locks and those massive bursts would be facing players who have the knowledge required to actually face off against that. Like, players who understand, like, how to rotate and how to get value out of getting kills and winning team fights will be playing against players who also know how to do that. Whereas right now, you're not. This is the core reason. I know I kind of went on a bit of a ramble there, but it's really important. The issue with PvP right now is all about population. Like, there are not a lot of people who are playing PvP, and it makes me sad, to be honest. And as a result of that, matches are not good. And they're very difficult for new players to actually figure out and learn. There are balance issues, but there are always balance issues. You've got to bear this in mind, guys, right? Like, damage, I know it's hard to believe, damage used to be higher, especially back in Path of Fire, and especially in HOT as well. Like, damage was pretty extreme back then. And yeah, I would love to see improvements to balance and slow the game down a little bit, because it's actually, the issue I have with PvP right now is actually game speed, not really even kill time. It's actually something a little bit different, which is basically like the amount of abilities that are going off per time interval is very high. Cooldowns are very, very short. Abilities typically have 3 or even more functions a lot of the time. Like, you know, I play a little bit of Condi Reaper, and there are some buttons I can press that will literally apply 5 conditions AoE to everyone around me. That is insane that you can do that. One ability doing all of that in one is ridiculous, to be honest. Like, that is the type of thing that, you know, they talk about players being overwhelmed. That is what overwhelms you as well. In addition to, like, you know, skill mismatches, right? Like, there's definitely some improvements that can be made there as well. But yeah, that's my little bonus rant on what's wrong with PvP. It's all about player base. More players, the game will work. So if they succeed in their goal here, and they're able to actually get, you know, a more sustained, larger player base into PvP, then that will also fix Conquest as well. Because Conquest is, in my opinion, an excellent game mode. I know that's not going to be the most popular take, but I do want to say that the reason why people hate Conquest is, in my opinion, because Conquest is not very fun right now, okay? It used to be a lot more fun when there were more people playing, I promise you. And I also promise you that if more people play, it will be more fun. I guarantee it. I will die on this hill, guys. But you know what? This game mode also does look like it could definitely be interesting as well. They've got to be a little bit careful about like how team fighty it gets. I think 5v5 turns into a complete clown fiesta, if I'm being real. So I think it would be a good idea to have some other things on the map that you might want to think about a little bit, or maybe kind of adjust like the size of the node, like how capture progression works, how the push and pull actually works. That's going to be important to keep in mind there as well. Like if you end up running like a really bunkery comp or like a full team fight comp, I think that's not going to be great, to be honest, but we'll see how it turns out. I believe, guys, we have to go into it with an open mind and be optimistic. We absolutely do. I'm looking forward to pushing the cloud around. That's going to be good content. We absolutely love to see that. But yeah, I don't think I need to speak any more about this, guys. I would say looking cool. I actually think this is a really pleasant surprise to actually see ArenaNet go in this direction. I think it makes a lot of sense the way they're going about this, and it also does lean into the strength of Guild Wars 2, right? Like, Guild Wars 2 is a game that, you know, tries to be something for everyone, and PvP is actually the game mode that's easily struggling the most right now. Like, there's a new raid coming out, so that's for, like, the hardcore PvE players. You've got, like, the open world is really good for, like, the casual PvE players right now. World versus world is, you know, getting updated quite a lot as well. It's PvP that is really struggling, in my opinion. So, like, making a new game mode to try to attract people to the game and rebuild the PvP population a little bit is pretty much the correct strategy, in my opinion, when it comes to actually making the PvP experience better, because that number one issue with PvP is population. Like, nothing else even matters, because the game has had worse balance than this, trust me, and it's been more active and more fun than this. And that's just because more people were playing, right? Competitive games live and die by their populations. And unfortunately, Guild Wars 2's has been dying. So yeah, you can kind of put 2 and 2 together there. But that'll do it for now, guys. Let me know what you think. Do you think this is the worst game mode ever? Do you think it's the best game mode ever? Are you going to be playing in the beta? You looking forward to the stream tomorrow? I'll be watching that as well, so be sure to tune in. I'll be shamelessly leeching off ArenaNet's content here on my Twitch and YouTube channel, so stay tuned for that. And of course, stay tuned for my commentary on the Tournament of Legends and my own PvP events as well. But that's going to do it, guys. Leave your comments, like, subscribe, come back and watch every single day. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time.